I had my eye on the Fuji GFX50S for quite some time. I will happily admit that rather than just getting better at photography, I'd rather spend 1400 quid in the hope that I can bypass any actual need to level up my skills. Maybe I never learned these skills as a child. Maybe I'm just a lazy Who knows? Anyway, I was lucky enough to snag one of these a couple of months ago, and I absolutely love it. I've said in previous videos that whilst I love almost everything about film photography, I crave the details, and the GFX50S has detail in abundance. With its ginormous sensor, I can literally see the pain of my subject when I zoom into their eyes by 100 times. But that's not the reason I bought the camera. I shoot with a Leica M6 and a Pentax 645, and I wanted something digital that I could slot into my ever-increasing rumbling herd of enameled, anodized aluminium beasts. Something that could fill the gaps where my film cameras always fell short. To make this purchase even more justifiable, the GFX50S would become the camera that I use to digitally scan my film. So the aim of this video is to go out with one digital camera, one film camera, and do a shoot with my incredibly talented friend Beth Morris, who's a singer-songwriter and always down for going out and getting some snaps. I can't imagine any of you can be bothered to go into the comments below and say whether you like the digital or the film versions, but if it helps make you an informed answer, just know that we won't read the comments. We won't be sitting there waiting, hoping for some sort of engagement from our viewers to push us further towards validation in a way that only social media can. When the film comes back from the lab that I use, which is Analog Wonderland, I'll be using the Fuji and a 90mm Canon macro lens adapted to the camera with a Viltrox adapter. I can hear my wife's voice in the back of my head saying, as long as your hobby makes you happy, because all of this effort sure as doesn't make your pictures any better. Undeniably, shooting on a digital camera offers something that film just can't. Instant feedback. I don't know if I will ever shoot film and not have a slight worry in the back of my mind that we are actually not getting anything decent at all. 9 times out of 10 that's actually true, but that's neither here nor there. But that instant feedback isn't just for me though. I like to show the talent pictures as we go, so they can see what it is I'm going for, how they look, and it can give me and them ideas if we want to do anything differently. I've done a fair bit of fashion work in my career, and posing models is so easy when the model spends every day posing. Beth is a fantastic model, but it's not her job. So instead of directing anyone that's not a model too much, I tend to let them fall into a position that they are comfortable in, and then maybe make small tweaks here and there. I think as long as you can have a laugh while you're shooting, you can get some really nice photos.
Admiring the professionalism.
There's not much of that going on, mate. Nice. It's like, yeah, and then I made you look that much. Yeah, that's it. Cool. Right, so how are we going to do this? I think let's try. I actually did the lab scan versus GFX test before we did this shoot with Beth, so I'm using a negative that I shot during summer for a project. I was just too excited to see what sort of quality I could get out of the Fuji setup. The lab scan is the one on the left, and the one on the right is the one taken through the GFX50S system. I didn't give the lab any instructions as to how I wanted these scans to look, and I assume that they just make scans that look good and are pretty much ready to post straight out the box. And this one does look good. I definitely don't hate it, but you can see there is a lot of sharpening going on. It looks fine zoomed out, but when you zoom further into it, it's quite drastic and quite noticeable. It's also a lot more contrasty and slightly more saturated than I might like. So to see what the differences are, I'm going to edit the GFX version to look as much like the lab scan as I can, so I can see what the differences are. So the first thing that I'm going to do is increase that sharpening as much as I can, all the way to the top. The lab scan is quite punchy, so I'm going to increase the contrast. I'm going to bring the highlights down. Same with the shadows. The lab scan has made the skin tones a lot more magenta, and the GFX version are too green, certainly from what I remember anyway. And the greens are just a little off full stop, so I'm going to adjust them. And then the last thing I'm going to do, because I've run out of sharpening that I can add, is add a little texture, clarity and dehaze to try and bring that image up to the same look as the one on the left. So I think that is a similar looking image, but maybe slightly more to my liking. But having said all of that, I probably would have wanted to edit from the GFX version in the first place, but I didn't have this camera at that time. The finished photo that went online was this one, which was edited from the lab scan originally. The scans come back at around 90 megabytes per image, so they can be tweaked a lot. I honestly wouldn't mind posting this image straight out of the box. And of course it takes a lot less time. I'm much more inclined to self-scan medium format 120 rolls, as it's much less time consuming, but 35mm can be a pain when you have a lot of rolls to scan. And I would obviously much rather be looking at other pictures that I can find on the internet. If you're wondering why I'm using this microphone, it's because repping on the mic is nothing new to me. So am I happy with my decision to buy the Fuji GFX50S? Yes, I am. It's an absolute beast of a camera. The files are massive, there's so much detail, and for certain parts of the work that I do, it's going to be an absolute workhorse. But it's also fantastic for doing digital scans of negatives. As we can see here, the image I've got is very close to the big fancy Noritsu scan. I think as long as you're not a control freak like I am, then getting lab scans is great. It's not that expensive, it's incredibly convenient and it's fast. But myself, I want to have complete control over what's going on with my negatives. I want to scan it digitally how I want it. I want to put it into Lightroom and through Negative Lab Pro just how I like it. And I want to get it into Lightroom to edit it just how I like it, with very little baked in, which is what you will get with a lab scan. Occasionally I do have film work that needs to be turned around quickly, so in these circumstances I'm definitely going to be running to Analog Wonderland to be getting those lovely lab scans. Thank you very much for watching. MC Benny Kid out. Peace.